Alright, another top 10 video. Today, my top 10 rally cars. As always, these are in no particular order, and it's my list based on my memories and what I feel is appropriate. Some cars won't make the cut. If you want to put your own cars on the list, that's fine. That's what the comment section's for. Alright, here we go. Number 1, Peugeot 205 T16. I just think this is a cool car, man. It's, you know, they took a boxy little economy car and said, nope, we're not using that. They put the engine in the back. They made the back end of it out of Kevlar. They put some tube frames in it. Put a turbocharger back there, and away they went. All-wheel drive. Just really nasty. Probably the first true Group B car that really took advantage of all the regulations. And just a wacky piece of engineering. And, you know, France is not known really for their great cars, but this was a great car. This was a great racing machine, and I feel fortunate to have come along in an era where I did get to see it a couple times, certainly on television, but also in the flesh once or twice at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. So very happy to have known this car, so to speak. Up next, number 2, the Audi Quattro. What can we say about the Audi Quattro? The grandfather of all four-wheel drive rally cars. I mean, it is the foundation on which all modern rally cars are built, and that's just really cool. Plus, there were so many iterations of it. Oh my God! Every time Audi went back to the drawing board and came back with a different version, it was faster, or had more wings, or had a different wheelbase. They were always tweaking this car, and that the engineer in me loves the fact that they were always coming back with something different, and they kept it truly production based. I know there were some plans for an evolution car that would have been more like the Ford RS200 or the Peugeot 205, where it would have been basically just a tube frame car with a shell around it and mid-engine and all that stuff. But I like the fact that you could go to a showroom and buy an Audi Quattro that more or less resembled what they were driving on the rally stages. I'm a sucker for that. Number 3, the Lancia Delta S4. Another one of these sort of tube frame silhouette deals where it wasn't really a car, it was a collection of tube frames with a car shell wrapped around it. And another mid-engine vehicle, 4-cylinder, turbocharged and supercharged, technologically very advanced, although I guess somewhat finicky. This one here is trying to launch and it's gonna stall, which I find hilarious. But you know, the combination of boost from the supercharger at the low end and the turbocharger coming in at higher RPMs was just a really cool way to do things. And frankly, if I could engineer such on a street car, I would. The valving and plumbing for that terrifies me, to be honest about it. But you know, if someone comes up with a kit for the 240, I would certainly buy it. Hint, hint. But yeah, just Lancia had a strong racing history, and this is one of their stronger race cars of all time. Next on the list, the Ford Sierra Cosworth. I have mixed feelings about the Sierra Cosworth because, of course, we didn't get it in the United States. We got the quote-unquote Mercure XR4 Ti, which was more or less the same car, but different. For instance, we definitely didn't get the Cosworth engine here. But it was a nice-looking car, especially since we only got the two-door version here in the U.S. Good-looking vehicle. Did well for itself as a rally car. Did well in road racing as well. And that's a unique distinction to the Sierra, is that it performed well both in the rally stages and on circuits. So that's a pretty neat trick. The Ford Escort Cosworth RS. Now this car I love. And again, we didn't get this in the United States. And yeah, I know it's basically just a shortened version of the Sierra with a vaguely Escort-ish shell wrapped around it. I get that. But the car was awesome. The car was freaking awesome. Front engine, longitudinal mount, 4-wheel drive, huge spoiler on the back. I've seen a couple of these in the United States at car shows and such, and I know a few left-hand drive versions were probably gray marketed over here, and they do exist. There are a handful around the U.S., but I can't imagine trying to buy one. They've got to be so ridiculously expensive. This is actually one I saw at Hot Import Nights in Chicago way back in, I guess that was 2006 maybe. Great car. I'd love to have one. The Lancia Stratos. The Stratos is special. Mid-engine V6, essentially a Ferrari for off-roading. Sort of the Lancia parts bin special with the Ferrari engine, and who knows what other bits and pieces they wrangled from other Fiat automobiles. But the design itself is timeless and really cool looking, and I know they make replicas today, and I think there may be actually a continuation car with the original body panels. I'm a little confused on that. I know there are some very good replicas out there though, and again, if I just had the money to go buy stuff, I would definitely buy a Stratos, and not a road racing Stratos like this one. I would get a definitive off-road rally car Stratos with the extra lights on the hood and everything. If you're gonna go big, right? Too bad they never made a four-wheel drive version. That would have been the ultimate. The hill at Goodwood. All right, the Ford RS200. Again, I love so many of these cars. I am not a Ford person. I've owned one Ford. It was an Expedition. I don't count utility vehicles though. But beyond that Expedition, there is no Ford that I would ever want to park in my driveway except the Escort RS and the RS200. And I mean, look at that thing. Look at it. It's like a little space pod, but for dirt. It came along too late to really get on the Group B action, but it's seen other uses. For instance, hill climbs, Pikes Peak. I heard it got fairly extensive use in national rallies where it was allowed, but the full-on Group B supercar version just really didn't get that much run, because by the time it was ready to go, Group B was basically being killed off. Pardon the pun there. But yeah, just a cool car. Again, if I could afford one, if I could find one and afford one, I would definitely own one. The Opel Manta. So the Opel Manta is an interesting story, because this isn't a car we had in the U.S., although we had something roughly similar to it. Front engine, rear wheel drive, very traditional. This was sort of the last, this and the 037, I guess, were sort of the last run for the two-wheel drivers before the four-wheel drive cars took over and never looked back. But I just think it's a cool car. It sounded great going up the hill at Goodwood. It sounded great out in the rally stages at Goodwood. And to me, it reminds me a little bit of the US spec Chevy Monza, which I know it's not really the same car, but it does remind me of the Monza, and I just think it's a great car. I always hated the fact that GM made better cars in Europe than they did in the US. And I'm sure that'll get me in trouble with some GM faithful, but that's just my feeling on the matter. The Fiat 131 Abarth. So obviously this car predates Group B. It was more your traditional old school rally car, front engine, rear wheel drive, 4 cylinders, 4 seats, or not in racing trim obviously, but based on a 4-seat car, and just your classic 3-box coupe. Great car. I mean, yeah, certainly before my era, but reminds me so much of the sort of utility car that I used to drive, except of course it's rear wheel drive compared to the front wheel drive I had. But it's the idea that you take a car that's just a car and then you build it up to go do what it needs to do, which is win rallies. And the 131 definitely won rallies. All right, the Toyota Corolla. This is one of these cars that I only saw on the internet until I went to Goodwood. And another car that we did not get in any form in the United States, our version of the Corolla didn't look anything like this as far as being a hatchback. So this car was a little bit foreign to me, but I came across it on some rally sites. I used to follow rally mostly via the web when I was in college, and I came across this car and was like, oh wow, that's cool. You know, that's way better than the American Corolla. And I will say that the Celica GT4 was pretty cool as well, but there's something to me about a hatchback rally car that's sort of in the hot hatch mold. And maybe that's because of my weakness for the, you know, Renault R5 and the Peugeot 205 and cars in that vein. It just seems to me that there's a utility aspect to it of having that hatchback area. MG Metro 6R4. This is one, I got a weird connection to this car. I love the fact that it's a little boxy hatchback that somebody put on steroids and said, we're going to go win races with it. And they didn't. It was not a terribly successful car, but it was sort of the ultimate iteration of what corporate engineering is. We're going to take a car that we have and we're going to make it into a rally car any way that we can. Last but not least, the Lancia 037, the true last legitimate rear-wheel drive world champion before the Group B four-wheel drive cars took over. And I love the fact that it's mid-engine, 4-cylinder, and supercharged. And apparently we did get this car in the US as the Scorpion in very limited numbers. But of course the 037 is not truly based on the Monte Carlo or the Scorpion. It was just sort of a weird derivation. But anyway, that's my list and my honorable mentions. You know, feel free to go in the comment section and have at it. Be nice to each other, but post your list. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm right. Thanks.